You are listening to Podcasting 101 with RSS.com, getting you ready to launch and grow your podcast.
Hey everyone, Ashley here with RSS.com, and I'm so excited to have Super Joe Pardo here. Joe, welcome to the show.
Woo! How we doing, famous Ashley Grant?
I am very excited, very, very excited. Can you do us a favor and tell us what it is you do?
What is it that I do? So I am a business optimization strategist working on operations through the team, the offer, and the process. I've been a content creator since 1996 with blogging and eventually into podcasting as well as YouTube. And I love working and helping small business owners because I grew up around small business myself, and it's, to me it's all about helping people and helping the families of those people. So it's incredible when I get to work with people that it amplifies what I'm capable of doing for all those people and all of those families that depend on it. And it's to me it's like the most important piece of it all.
Well, I mean, business optimization strategist, that's a very large phrase. What exactly does it mean?
Yeah, so we're like working on the operations, the processes. So it might involve the technology. Sometimes it involves just people and going through the process of like working through the problems that people are having, because like businesses are like robots. They're like hard, they're rigid, they want to like operate 24/7, go, but they're filled with like soft gooey insides called people, and those people have problems. Those people have outside influences, they have illnesses, like they have like all kinds of like other, they got to do the things that they want to do right at the same time. So when you're working with businesses, you're working with more than just like a numbers on a sheet, right? It's people, it's the stories, it's the customers that they help. And to me, creating the best processes, it create a great experience, not just for the customer, not just for the employees and the team members, but also for the person who owns it and operates it, and helps them ultimately get to building a business that's for their lifestyle, instead of their lifestyle for their business. So when because you can like absolutely have a business that runs your lifestyle, and some people love it, right? Like my grandfather loved it, my dad loves it, some other good friends of mine love it, but I think that not everybody does, and just because they don't doesn't mean that they makes them bad at business or makes them bad people. But I think it makes them realistic, because I think that a lot of like, you look at like the Gary Vaynerchuk's, the Casey Neistats, the gurus that are like, oh, you got to work and all that. Like, yeah, that works for them. That's great. Like that's awesome. They figured out what works for them, but that doesn't necessarily work for everybody. And not saying to the opposite extreme of the 4-hour work week, but the just somewhere in between that makes people have a better appreciation for what they do, feel less jaded about what they do, and the people that they do it for, and ultimately gives themselves a better life, because they can do more of the things that they love, while optimizing the process so that people that work for them actually want to stay longer, and be a part of the business. I grew up in a family business that started in 81, but I'm like a 7th generation entrepreneur, going back, it's like into the 50s, with my great grandfather, and even before that. But it's crazy that people, they look at how other businesses are run, other small businesses. They look at how the big corporations are run. And I always think like, look, I think that there's a lot of bad things we could say about corporations. And there's a lot of good things you could say for them. But I think if you look at it objectively, you take the things that make the most sense and you add the human element to it, you'll end up somewhere in between that enables people to feel like you care, because you don't have the advantage of like maybe huge paychecks for all your employees, right? You don't have some of the health insurance benefits that can come along with being a huge corporation. But what you do have is you have the ability to have more of a human touch instead of like an Amazon that like, oh, I went to my locker today and it told me I was fired. Like, I didn't get to meet with anybody. Nobody talked about it, blah, blah, blah. And now Amazon has a problem where they're literally running out of people in certain communities to be able to hire because they've already fired those people, or they already work for them, or they work somewhere else and they're not looking to come to work for Amazon. So, you know, in just a few short years, they've blown through some work, workforces. And the only way to get more of those is people got to age up into the workforce, or they need to like lower their standards a little bit, which I think they could learn a thing or two about doing.
Well, so when did podcasting come into your sphere?
So I have been listening to the podcast since 2005. Huge Disney fan. I listened to a show called WDW Today. And for me, like, I learned so much about podcasting from them without even them talking about podcasting, just from listening to every episode 3 days a week for the better part of like almost a decade. Yeah, almost a decade. So once I actually became friends with all of them, the four guys and female that were a part of the show. And they were like, "Oh, Joe, you should totally have your own podcast. You could like talk about Disney and all stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, nah, I probably would get bored with that." And because I knew I would. And that was in like 2011, 2012, something to that effect. And so fast forward to 2014, I put out my first, I'm also a DJ as well, since like 2004. And I put out my first DJ album, and I was doing a bunch of interviews on Disney podcasts because I made this mashup album of Disney music and hip hop instrumentals, and it tells the story of Pixar's Up. And we raised a bunch of money for Give Kids the World on it. And so I was doing all these interviews on podcasts, and that's when the bug really got to me. And I was like, wow, I really want to do something with this. And I left my family's business at the time. I was totally fed up. And, leaving a 9-figure business behind is super scary because, like, I don't have a degree. I didn't just parachute into another, job. Heck, the only other jobs I'd ever worked were side gigs for some website building stuff and DJing gigs. So for me, it was like, oh, wow, like this is going to be different. This is going to be real different. A month after that, I was on a flight to Disney World, and I was talking to a friend of mine who I was going to run a race with down there. And I was like, oh, is there any other Disney podcasts that I haven't reached out to about being on? I showed him like a big old list. And he's like, oh, have you heard of this show called like Entrepreneur on Fire? And this was in 2014. So John had just started. I was like, no, what's the guy? He's like, oh, he just interviews entrepreneurs. I was like, oh, I never thought about podcasting in that light. To me, it was just a bunch of Disney heads or whoever was really into a thing sitting around talking about the thing that they were interested in. So I was like, oh, wow, like I could totally do this. And I started up the Dreamers podcast. When the plane landed, I registered the domain name, the Twitter handle, the Facebook page before we got to the rental car. And 2 weeks later, I had put out my first episode, and then I was off to the races. iTunes New and Noteworthy. Eventually went to write my first book of 4, and went to like podcastawards.com, became the best business podcast of 2017. And that was an awesome day because we also found out the gender of my son, which was pretty cool. So there's actually I was vlogging at the time. So that was really cool to get to have that experience in there. And so it's just kind of evolved into eventually just really about business and really about entrepreneurship, and really eventually turning into the YouTube channel and Shark Tank reaction videos and all that along the way.
Now, how intertwined is podcasting and your business for you?
Pretty intertwined. I mean, it's the megaphone to, the business. It's also, I started up the Independent Podcast Conference in 2014 as well, at the end of 2014, which has grown immensely since then. And we've held 5 in-person events, and eventually we'll hold a sixth in-person event. It was supposed to be this year, and I actually haven't fully made the announcement. I changed everything on the site, but it's good. We're pushing it to 2023 because there's just not enough people in our community. Everyone's like, I would love to come. It's way too much uncertainty. Flights are a mess. Gas is terrible. COVID is still out there. I don't know. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna gamble a couple $1,000s on that. So like, let's just, it's not the main focus of my business. It's more of a passion project that does bring in money, but it's a passion project at the end of the day. And I love the community. I love bringing people together. I've been doing events, whether it's raves, LAN parties, working, doing our when I worked in my family's business back pre 2014, setting up the annual events that we would have at a local caterer here, where we'd have like 1,000+ people come through in about 5 hours. They'd go through all the vendor booths, go to a open bar and free buffet, and it was a great. I mean, I went to that show when I was a kid, running around grabbing pens and stuff. So for me, getting to take it over was really special, and it kind of played into I love hosting events. I love bringing people together, and just having a really great time with really great people and connecting.
Would you say that podcasting actually helps you to find clients for your business?
Yes. So that has been that's been an interesting thing. So part of the problem that I've ran into over the years was not necessarily having the marketing message line up with the business, right? So like when I won Best Business Podcast of the Year award in 2017, my show was still called The Dreamers Podcast. And, that's when I was like, all right, I went to a few of my friends. I'm like, what do you think? Does this make sense to you? And they're like, well, Joe, I love your show. I love the guests you bring on. I love the insight. If I didn't know you, I would have passed over your show because of the name. I would have because of the name of the cover art and everything, I would have passed over it. So, that's when I started to like reevaluate, and kind of start to tweak and look at, that kind of stuff. So it's not that a lot of it's like not necessarily direct. And I think a lot of times we want to think that everything's a super direct, like, hey, I put out episode, next step, profit, right? And It's not necessarily that way. It'll be that way for some people, but it's a lot of referrals, people that listen, that, get that reminder, and then they refer somebody to me, and that kind of process. So it's not direct, like I post episode, all of a sudden my phone's ringing the next day, So I would say that's actually probably a minimal amount of the business that's been brought in. Just kind of like how Independent Podcast Conference it's a passion project that has brought in money into my business, like actually into my actual core business of consulting. Because, so-and-so knows so-and-so that works with somebody that's like, oh yeah, this would be a perfect fit for this. Not, and I've done like a lot of podcast coaching and stuff over the years, but again, I would still put that more in the passion side than the actual business side. That's the business side is really about the coaching work and consulting, working on the business model, working on the processes, working on the emotions and the the ebbs and flows of the owner and the team that they have.
Okay. Well, what's interesting to me is you've brought up community several times, and it sounds like one of the biggest things that you are so good at is the networking and the getting to know people and the bringing people together. And so whether it's indirect or direct, the fact that you're able to make money in your business partially because of your podcast, but maybe not directly from your podcast. I love that. And I think it's so cool. So now you also mentioned something else. You've mentioned, all the things that you've been doing. You've mentioned the YouTube, and you mentioned the ebbs and flows. And that one really got me. And the reason why is because the reason I wanted to bring you on is because of haters. So one of the things that I have found so fascinating about you watching all of the stuff that you've been doing is how gracefully you handle haters. And one of the biggest things that holds people back from starting a podcast is the fear that, okay, I'm going to start it and I'm going to get so many people who hate it and they're just going to badmouth me and troll me, and I might as well just quit before I even buy a microphone. So talk to me a little bit about all of that. When it started and how it started, all the stuff.
How what specifically started?
How you started, I guess, gaining traction with YouTube and podcasting to where you were actually starting to get haters.
Yeah, so it's been a number of years. Since I started in 2014. I can't say that we ever really had, or I ever really had haters up until we got to the YouTube part where people actually started to watch and pay attention. And so that's, I mean, it would be cool to have had that experience sooner. I mean, I have had that experience because I've had, a number of people who, mostly people that I would say I don't really want to, have in my circle. So they kind of addition by subtraction kind of thing. Like, I'm adding to my life by enabling them to subtract themselves from it. Because we just, they need to have some complex about being in charge or feeling some superiority or something like that. And I do my best to stay away from that and try to be as, when you talk about community and people, to me, it's really it's like I live for that. Like we went to Europe for our honeymoon, me and my wife, right? And yeah, go and see it's cool. Like you see like the Roman Colosseum or whatever. But to me, what I remember more about that trip is the people that I met from all over the world that would, because we had these 2-hour-long bus rides and stuff. So I would be like talking to, people from Canada. We're talking about like their healthcare system and stuff. And this is in 2012. So, it's things like that. That's like, means so much to me. And what podcasting enabled me to do was very rapidly build a network outside of my world, right? And build it because my world was in trucking. It was in truck parts and trucking and in transportation industry, right? So that's not everybody I knew, but like a good chunk of the people that I knew, a good percentage, was in that. So what enabled me to have with podcasting was to go and get people from all these different industries from all over the world that were like doing awesome things, cooler than what I was doing, and getting the highlight and inspire other people, inspire myself. Cause like, I really still didn't know what I wanted to do in April of 24 or in May of 2014, until probably June, July of 2014. I started to like figure, okay, we're going to have the podcast, we're going to do books, we're going to do speaking, we're going to do coaching, and all that. So I think to me, relationships are the currency for the most part. And I don't put a lot of, I probably, if I put more effort into the money, I probably could make a lot more of it from that. But to me, like, I don't necessarily want to deal with some of the headaches that come along with that, like having sponsors. And like, I've had sponsors in the past, and I get sponsors for my podcast conference and all that. But, I'd rather just not have to deal with that and enter in YouTube, right? And part of me, I love podcasting. I kind of do wish though that I had the foresight in 2014 to do more YouTube then, because I probably would be like that much further along with it and the community and all. But who knows? Like, it wouldn't have necessarily been the same audience. It might not have been the right thing. Like, it just might not have been the right thing at the time. So, having the opportunity to have people comment, it's so much more powerful than like with podcasting. It's like, oh, they can rate, like leave a review or something like that. But the call to actions are tough with podcasting, because you're asking somebody to do something when they're like mowing the lawn, taking a shower, driving a car, things they're not gonna like, let me jump on Facebook or Twitter and like do the thing, right? So it's like almost like an auxiliary thing to get them to listen to the podcast, or to get them to be on Twitter, Facebook group, whatever it is, and interact with you. It's funny, I'm actually in quite a few Facebook groups for podcasts that I've like never listened to once. but I love the people. I love like the community that they have, the support and everything like that. I just, I could count on one hand the number of podcasts I listen to, period. Honestly, which is kind of sad, but at the same time, like I just don't have a ton of time to listen to podcasts. So I'm just very, very, very selective in what I listen to at this point.
Well, I mean, that makes a lot of sense because not only are you producing a podcast, you're producing a YouTube channel, you're running your own business. So it makes complete sense to me. I mean, it sounds like you need lots of systems and processes, not just for your, business, but also your life because
Yes,
there's a lot going on. Well, I mean, I can't even imagine doing like juggling all the balls that you've got in the air. Like, how do you keep it straight? How do you keep, doing the podcasting and all the other things?
yeah. So like in this case, the podcast pretty much only happens when I do interviews with people that have been on Shark Tank at this point. Like I literally was just on a call right before I jumped in here with somebody that's been on Shark Tank 2 seasons ago. So that'll get turned into a podcast. The reaction videos, that has suffered a little bit, but I did get, complete most of last season. And I will be getting, I actually had some tweaking I wanted to do to my format. So, which I'm not going to like bore everybody with at this point, but I had some tweaking. I'm going to be doing some more testing in the near future here so that I can hopefully, fingers crossed, more easily get content out on the reaction front. Because it's very time consuming when it doesn't go right.
Yeah. I can only imagine, but getting back to the Shark Tank reaction videos, because that's kind of what spawned this whole got to get you on thing. So whenever the hate happens, what did you do? Like, what's your thought process? How do you handle some of the pretty ignorant comments that come through?
Yeah, I mean, it did bother me. For the first, I want to say 6 to 8 months, I let it ride. I would just reply like I think pretty much out of the gate, I was pretty much just like, I'm just going to say that I appreciate you watching and commenting, and I let the comments ride. I didn't delete them or shadow ban those comments, which I mean, look, everything happens for the way it's supposed to happen or whatever, but I wanted people to see how I would react to them. And I wanted people to be able to say, to see me through it. Right. And to see a human being that's actually responding to them. I would say, maybe more happened than I actually realized, but what I did see was there was some of those comments that were really, really rude, really like just nasty, like terrible comments to make about another person in general. Like,
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, maybe they would get a lot of likes. A couple of them got a lot of likes. I would get a handful of likes on my like, I appreciate you watching and commenting. Sometimes I'd get people that say like, oh, I didn't realize that you would actually read this or that you'd see this or whatever. And it changed, so I think to a certain extent, it did what I was wanting it to do. But then part of me was like, these comments are kind of consuming me, even though I'm not letting, like, it's like, look, I appreciate you watching and commenting. It gives me a good chuckle because I'm like, there's, to me, a lot of those comments have no context.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they just don't. Like, you didn't do the research. You didn't try to have a conversation with me. And I'm like, I'm not a big TV show watcher, like at all. Like, my wife watches way more TV shows than I ever do. But I did watch Ted Lasso, and the whole like, be curious, not judgmental thing really hits home. Mm-hmm. And it's made me look at things differently. And even in real life situations where I've like had to deal with like yelling parents and stuff while coaching one of my kids' soccer games. That my kid's 6. Most of the kids on the team were 5. and just dealing with the screaming and just being like, I'm just doing my job here. Like I'm doing the things that are supposed to be done. And, if you want to come and have a conversation, just come and talk with me. But screaming on the sideline, like I can't even acknowledge that because I'm too busy trying to make sure that we're, doing what we're supposed to do here. And I translate that from the, dealing with those comments. Because, like, look, we all had people that we didn't like or whatever, we didn't get along with, and things didn't go the way we wanted them to with those relationships. But even before that, like, I've always been of the mindset of, like, everybody deserves to be happy. Like, even if they're the crappiest people, that they're just doing really mean things, like, there's a reason that they're doing it. We can't forget that, because they're not just doing it like because they're like the Joker or something. They just like want to see the world burn. They're people too, and so it's important to remember that, like, they have a situation going on, and it's still hurtful, but, like, so the weight of those comments kind of got on me. But then I started to think, and I'm like, why let somebody else who has a similar thought process be able to just click a like button and move on with their life, right? To a really nasty comment.
Right.
Like, and I'm not talking about just like, oh, I don't like the video or whatever, or just shut up or whatever, like something stupid like that. Like I tried I'll try pinning their comment at the top. Well, the fact that matters, most of these people have zero content, so they have zero skin in the game, right?
Yeah.
Like, their comment literally means nothing because they have nothing weighted. Like, it's not like they have this, oh, I have my own following of 50,000 people, and, like, I don't want people to see that I'm nasty or whatever. Like, so it's like, oh, you take their nasty comment, pin it at the top, and it's like, oh, they probably won't like that very much,
Yeah.
And maybe they do have content. Maybe maybe this is just their rando account that they're choosing to do it on. And maybe I know that some of that is happening out there, but so ultimately I decided about, I want to say 8-9 months into it, to say, you know what, I'm going to go through all my comments, and I'm just going to hide those comments, hide those people from the channel, and they can comment all they want or whatever, and I don't have to see their comment anymore. And as time went on, and plus, the other thing was, those people, instead of being able to click the like button, they get to, if they want to express their displeasure with it, just go and write your own comment, which will help the YouTube algorithm even more. So I appreciate you even more than just clicking the like on somebody else's really nasty comment. Plus, so I decided I'm gonna just hide them, and I want to say it was like almost 6 months later. That's when I decided, like, you know what, we've hit a lot of people. Let's unhide the people and see who's still commenting out there. It took a week. It took a week for one of my band ones to show back up and have something nasty to say. But yeah, I think that taking that punch in the gut, because some of those comments, while nasty, I mean, some of them are, they're through the lens of reality, like their lens of reality, right? Mm-hmm. They'll say, oh, who's this like fat bald guy, like talking, flipping his pen or something, or thinks he's a shark or something like that. And which is not the case. I don't purport to be a shark, and that's not why I'm doing what I'm doing. I genuinely am just here to help, inspire entrepreneurs, inspire people to go and be super and be the best that they can be, and help them inspire other people to go and be the best that they can be. I'm not asking anybody to be perfect, but we gotta do is the best that we can for ourselves and the people around us. So, having those comments, getting the punch in the gut, especially when they hit close to home. And I've watched, do you watch like Gerald Undone?
No.
Oh, you totally should. Him and like Cinnamon Toast Ken, like they've done a couple of video, like one video or two videos, and Make Art Now, and Gerald Undone did like a whole like not podcast series on YouTube. And they talked about this, like this, the YouTube comments and how people, like, it's like you and I are sitting at a diner, Ashley, like we're sitting at a diner, we're having a meal, and somebody walks up and says, oh, your shirt is like the wrong color for your eyes. have a terrible day, and then they just walk away, and it's like why? I wasn't even talking to you.
Yeah.
I wasn't even talking to you, right? And I think that's the key, is that the people that feel that way are not your audience. They're not anybody that's ever going to buy anything from you. They're not any, like, the most they might do is give you some ad revenue, right? By watching your videos. They love, if they love to hate you, which is a shame, because I don't want to be loved to hate. Like, I'm not a pro wrestler or something that's playing a bit part, or a guru who they intentionally be a certain way to be hated. Like, that's a thing. Because they want you to get mad, to share it, to tell other people, like, look at this idiot, right? Because one or half a person out of however you calculate half a person out of 10 is going to say, oh wow, I don't think that they're a joke. I think they're pretty serious. And then boom, $10,000 sale, like boom, that's all it took, right? But we got to get big numbers. Got to get as big numbers as possible, make as much noise as possible. Another great interview was from Nas Daily and Casey Neistat, where Casey was like, I didn't invent the term, but like, I want to post and ghost. He's like, I don't want to do that, but the comments just force me to do that, because I can only read so much before it just gets, so hurtful, like, and takes me down. So, and at the end of the day, this is a dictatorship, not a democracy. So I don't care, like, I will delete your comment. I just don't care, or I will not read any of the comments, because it just makes my day a lot better.
Well, what would you say to the podcaster who's afraid to even start because they're afraid they're going to get those hateful comments?
Yeah. I've read, and I've experienced this as well. Not feeling restrained from what I feel like I can and can't say because of what might be taken out of context. Not even just for randos on the internet, but like people I actually know, right? People I work with, people that, you're in certain situations. And in my case, I talk about business, right? So taking certain situations and having to like mask them so that it doesn't sound so obvious that like I pulled this from work or a specific person or something like that. Like that, I think that that's really the harder part. So to me, I would say if you're that worried about it, don't post about it. Don't advertise it. In fact, with YouTube, you're better off not posting about it, because you don't want people to say, oh, cool, Joe started a YouTube thing. Let me click on it. Oh, cool, there's Joe. I watched 10 seconds and then I click off, and it's like, YouTube's like, oh, cool, that person didn't like it. Well, maybe we shouldn't share it to 7 other people. Maybe we'll just share it to like 2 other people. Oh, by chance, they didn't click on it either. So, oh, well, so I would say if you're worried about it, you'll find a way to do it anonymously. Don't be afraid to post and ghost, post it and don't interact. In my case, I really want to interact. My wife gets on me from time to time. She's like, oh, you read these comments and, and she's like, it must bother you. I'm like, nah, it doesn't bother me. It just, again, these people probably aren't for me. Like, if they were, they would either just not comment, like they could just easily just go away. But I also, I do worry about other content creators getting, like, if they got some of those things that I got, like, you got to build up the resistance, and you got to build up the resistance to like try to like punch back, because it's never gonna, unless you're like the god of comebacks. No,
it won't end well. It won't end.
I know I'm not. I know I'm not. Right. So like and sometimes I'll think of things to say, but it's like 8 days later, and it's like it's no longer relevant.
Or like you're afraid that if you do actually say it, it could be used against you in some way.
Well, that
could add fuel to the fire.
Well, yeah, because it opens the door, right? It opens the door and the window to like, having to either over explain, which people won't probably read, fewer people will read that. It's just, at the end of the day, it's like, just be kind to that person and say, thank you, I appreciate you watching, or, something to that effect. And I mean, I've had people write back like, I watched 10 seconds and then wrote this nasty comment. Like, bravo, you're an awesome person. Thanks for playing. Like, I know that, right? Like, look, I know that I'm onboarding something to people that aren't necessarily looking for what I'm selling or bringing to the table, right?
Mhm.
And that's okay. So that comes with the territory. But hey, if you color inside the lines all the time, guess what you won't get? Haters. You won't get people that are so angry and triggered by the fact that you gave them an opportunity to, in my case, watch something that they wouldn't have otherwise, unless they go and pay for it, or if they can even pay for it in their country in which they're watching it from. It just shows like people of all races, colors, creeds, backgrounds, nationalities, whatever, from the planet Earth can be super entitled. It doesn't just happen in certain places or, with certain people. It's literally, I've seen it from all countries all over the world be super entitled to what they should and shouldn't be able to get on the internet. And that's if it's my responsibility to deliver it to them.
Yeah, I guess for me, like the big thing that keeps sticking out though is it kind of breaks my heart, the content creators that are afraid to even start, that could have really good shows, but they're so scared of the hate that they just don't post anything. And it's like, kind of like you said, the post and ghost. I love that idea. I never thought of it, but it's brilliant. Or even like hire an assistant to handle all your hate for you.
If you got it like that, sure. I mean, but you don't necessarily have to, right? Like that's the whole idea. Like you don't have to turn comments on. You
That's
can turn
true.
comments off on YouTube. You don't have to enable comments on your website, right? Like or I mean, you kind of, I guess you can't turn off iTunes or Spotify reviews, but you don't ever have to check them. Like just don't check them. It doesn't really, I mean, it's a shame too, because like you'll be proud of the work you've done until you start reading like now here's the thing though. When it comes to those hateful comments, the ones that hurt are the ones that, the truth hurts, right? And there's clues in those comments sometimes, right? Because you have to remember, people don't know how to, they're not content creators, right? So they don't know how to articulate the thing that they don't like about it. And I've had to explain this to some of the coaching clients that I work with on like their YouTube channel or podcasting. Like there's things that it's like they won't know that they don't like the colors, but they'll know that they don't like it. And it's getting kind of late, so it's kind of hard for me to remember the specific example, but it's kind of so it's kind of like this. It's like if you're doing a talking head YouTube video, and you just have the talking head, it can work, right? And you have a certain background, certain setup or something like that, or certain colors. Like people might not realize that that's the thing that's triggering what they don't like. Oh, here's a perfect example. So there's a in filmmaking. This is gonna go filmmaking. There's a technique to make the audience feel like uneasy. And basically what you're going to do is you go low and you go crooked, right? Like an up. So you're taking a low, like of the person, you're like low and crooked. So for me, I couldn't figure out for the longest time why I cannot stand watching The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. Is it The Grinch or whatever? The one with Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Yes. I could not understand why that movie bothered me so much until I watched the YouTube video, no less, explaining that low and crooked uneasiness technique with the camera.
Okay.
And you watch that movie, so much of that movie is low and crooked, and it just makes me feel anxiety through the entire movie.
Wow.
Yeah. So I didn't know this until just recently, like in the last, like, I don't know, 6 months or something like that, to be able to explain it to somebody and say, wow, like I didn't know why it made me feel that way, but now I know because I watched a YouTube video. But people aren't going to be able to articulate why they hate something. Is it the audio? Is it the colors? Is it what you're wearing? Is it your hair? Is it your voice? I mean, not everyone's going to like your voice. Some people have silky smooth voices and things, and then some people just don't, right? And it doesn't, certain voices just don't work for everybody. Excuse me, in every medium and every format. Like, some people could be really great singers, or they could be really great rappers, and they might not be the greatest rapper from a lyricist point of view, but their voice sounds DMX is a great example. Amazing. Like, it's so much great. They're fun. It's like candy, but is it substanceful? Well, some songs a little more than others, but yeah, it gets the job done.
So I guess in a way, it's like the only way you can truly just not worry about it, not worry about what could potentially come from it, is just to focus on your art, focus on your message, focus on the person you're actually trying to talk to, and then everybody else, their opinions, none of your business.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, when those people, so the thing is once in a while you'll get those comments that point out something that, like, you should probably look into it. Like, they might be really mean about it, might be really rude. In my case, it was like, oh, the video needs to be bigger the whole time. And I'm like, well, I got YouTube copyright to work through here. Over time, I've been able to massage my way towards not having that problem and appeasing more of the people, right? Or looking at the analytics. Like, one of the great things about YouTube is you get a deluge, like, tons of analytics, so you can look at, like, the retention chart of, like, how long people are actually watching the video, like, where they're dropping off at, right? So it's like you get the big spike at the beginning, or downward spike, I should say, hockey stick of people dropping off. And in my case, it's like, oh, well, because I'm doing this, like, minute-long intro where you don't even see the video, like, you don't know that it's actually going to get there, and they're just like, yeah, no, I ain't watching this. So, like, little by little, I chopped it back. So I just, like, screw it. I ain't doing any intro. We're just playing the video. We're just going in. And then you still get people say, I'm not here to see your big fat forehead and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, there's a thing that you don't even understand. Like, you don't even know what's going on. Right. Yeah. And at the end of the day, like, I'm doing this to make money. Okay.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not trying to put the video out there for you to watch and for me to get nothing and Shark Tank take all of it. And meanwhile, like, I'm actually dropping knowledge here, like, of the 30 plus years of business that I've been around, plus standing on the shoulders of giants, plus all the interviews I've done, 475 interviews with entrepreneurs from all over the world. Like, I not everyone understands that I'm bringing something to the table, and that's okay, but I am. And I deserve to be paid for that.
So read the room, commenters.
It does. Well, commenters, but also you, right? Like, you look at the comments, you throw out the really crappy ones, but if you see the same comment a couple times, again, it might not be articulated the way you expect it to be, but, read between the lines a little bit, and then try to think, how can I change this? What else can I do? What else can I borrow from outside or steal from outside niches or industries to bring to my audience that isn't already here?
That's a great question, and it's definitely something for all of us to ponder on, because I mean, there's so much that podcasters already have to think about, and so to add, like, the video element and the comments element, it's a lot.
It is. I remember that holding me back from wanting to do it. Doing the YouTube thing on a regular basis. And it's also the technology was a little bit different back, 2015, 16, 17. So there wasn't as much, like, streaming gear that it's available now that makes it just brings, the barrier to entry a lot lower. I remember doing in 2015 and 16, doing Facebook Lives when that became a thing. And I would just, like, I set up my phone, like, me and my boy Matt would record my intro for the show, and that would be on, like, I would just set up the phone so that that could be streaming. So now all these years later, I get, like, there's, like, videos of me holding Ava, my firstborn, like, while doing these intros. And these intros could be, like, an hour long before we even got to the interview.
Oh, wow.
And we would talk about topics that were related to like entrepreneurship, self-betterment, dreaming, blah, blah, blah. And then I'd be like, okay, now we have this interview that's going to do. So go download the episode when it comes out, like for the Facebook live stream. But those videos were not great quality because the cameras weren't as great. You couldn't stream in 720p. I think at the time it was 480. So like, all these little things, just like, but now there's all these, technology and software to make it so much easier to go live and integrate it. So not everybody's going to be into watching talking head content, but there's just little things that you can do to like, if you really wanted to plus it up, like go get yourself a Storyblocks account, right? And like overlay, B-roll of something over what you're doing. So yeah, I wish I had found video a little bit sooner than 2017 personally.
But hey, you found it now, and there's still so much more you can do.
That is true. There's a lot more I could do, and a lot more I plan to do when I can find the darn time to do it.
Well, as you start rolling out all this stuff, where can people find you online?
Yeah, so it's joepardo.com or at Super Joe Pardo on all social media platforms, and indiepodcon.com for the Independent Podcast Conference, which is going to be in 2023. September.
Well, I mean, I think we've covered a lot of good stuff, and I hope that people look you up to see all the amazing things that you're doing. But before I let you go, there's one question I got to ask you. I ask everyone, what is one question I didn't ask that you really wish I had?
Well, we talked about this before, but you pretty much softballed it in. What podcast do you listen to, Joe?
Yeah, what podcast do you listen to, Joe?
Basically, it's like, there's like 3 shows. Video marketing value podcast with a guy who used to work for Leo Laporte. I'm blanking on his name. Nate, I think his name, maybe it's Nate. And he has I can't think of her name. Anyway, they're really great. Both of them are really, really great. And it's really helpful stuff if you're into, because both of them are high level, like not YouTube like influencers, but they're like behind the scenes, like analytics and like analytical people that have been around technology for a long, the one dude's worked for Leo Laporte, so he's been around for a long time.
Okay, I'll have to find them and then put it in the show notes. that's one. The next one, so that's like the third most listened to. Second most listened to would have to be Have a Seat, or no, not Have a Seat. Predators I've Caught with Chris Hansen. That's fascinating and depressing, and he's uncensored in the podcast, so he reads a lot of those chat logs that you used to watch on To Catch a Predator, where they would like blank out. They would read like 5 lines of the whole chat, and like they blanked out most of it. No, he reads the whole thing, and it's, oh my goodness,
it's like you want to. It's like, how does Chris not laugh while saying some of this stuff? It's because it's so absurd. It's so absurd and so horrible at the same time. It's so many emotions all mixed into one.
I can't even.
Yeah, and he does like updates on like where they're at now. He's done a couple interviews, like one of the guy's daughters. He interviewed the daughter. Yeah, and it's because she's like way older now. She was like a kid when it happened. But yeah, it's crazy. The most listened to show that I will listen to the absolute most, pretty much religiously, is the Disney Dish podcast with Jim Hill and Len Testa. Len Testa being one of the original 4 guys that started the WDW Today podcast back when that was still the original crew. Because that show's still going on, but it's a different people took it over. But yeah, it's
staying true to your roots.
Yeah, well, they talk a lot about like business. It's really a business podcast, and then there's history. They talk about the history of Disney as well, and like the news of Disney, and yeah, amazing.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Yeah, we'll have to find all the links for all of these and put them in the show notes.
Yes, you absolutely should go listen to all. I mean, if you can stomach the second one, but the marketing, video marketing, and Disney Dish are incredible as well.
I've definitely got a couple more to add to my list. I mainly listen to business podcasts and to a money mindset podcast. Like those are my big ones. But yeah, I'm always down to learn about new ones.
But those are the two. Look, the Disney Dish is really a business podcast. They even go into people send them the surveys that Disney sends out to
Oh wow.
guests. Yeah, so people send them the surveys and then they read the questions and then they try to guess like, well, what could this mean? What are they trying to like? What's the answer they're trying to get to with this? And
Wow.
And usually they're pretty right. They usually start the show out with a round of congratulations for them, self congratulations. So, Ashley, super famous Ashley Grant, thank you so much for having me on. I greatly appreciate being here and taking the time.
This was wonderful. I appreciate you taking the time to actually be here. So thank you so much.
100 any time. I'm so happy to be here and come back.
Well, my fellow podcasters, we hope you enjoyed the insights, tips, and ideas shared in this episode. To learn more about launching and growing your own show, head over to rss.com/blog. And if you're ready to launch a podcast of your own, you can get started for free with your first episode on us. Thanks for tuning in.